The opinions shared by our guests today are their own and do not necessarily reflect those of their respective companies. They are here to share with us their experiences, expertise, and opinions acquired during the course of their careers from the companies and industries they have chosen to be part of over the years. Now, with continued uncertainty and increased hybrid work models within the finance and accounting function, how should CFOs and finance leaders in Hong Kong reset their leadership model and strategy to support business recovery and navigate that rapidly changing business landscape? Now, our topic is future ready finance leadership. To help us understand better what issues and strategies we need to bear in mind going forward, it is my pleasure and an honor to invite our panel members for this discussion. First is Mr. Wilkie Wong. He's the Chief Financial Officer for the SQL Group. Now, SQL, as many of you know, is a Hong Kong-based textile and apparel manufacturer. Wilkie himself has over 20 years of experience, 18 of which are with SQL. So he's a tried and tested SQL alumni, or still member anyway. He's in charge of SQL's finance and logistics function. He will be joined by Mr. Keith Chan, Chief Financial Officer, Chief Financial and Technology Officer with McDonald's Hong Kong. And McDonald's does not require further introduction. Keith led the company's transformation back in 2017, becoming more data-driven in the years since and continues to do so to this day. The third member of our panel is Stephen Lowe, Chief Financial Officer for Prenetics. Now, he oversees the financial operations, corporate accounting and reporting, treasury, financial and tax planning and analysis, and investor relations. Now, Prenetics is another Hong Kong homegrown success story. It does genetics testing. More recently, they performed some of the PCR tests for frontline staff at specific vertical organizations. Now, finally, the last member of our panel joining us is Mr. Daniel Gertel, Business Director, New Entry Market for CCH Tagetik Asia Pacific for Wolters Kluwer. Now, Wolters Kluwer is a technology company offering services in health, tax and accounting, governance, risk and compliance, and legal and regulatory sectors. An interesting point to call out is Daniel actually started out as an accountant. Okay, so that's an interesting bit. Sorry about if I embarrassed you there, Daniel. Okay. Anyway, gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us this morning. Okay. Now, if I could kickstart the ball rolling on this one. The ACCA refers to the CFO and finance team as stewards of data. I wanted to ask our group here, do you believe that current practices around data management and are sufficient to deliver comprehensive real-time data? Keith, let's start off with you.
Thank you, Allan. Yeah, actually, in fact, the pandemic has really accelerated digital transformation across many different industries. So many companies due to the pandemic has accumulated tons of consumer data, internal data, and finance professional definitely is the stewards of data, as you mentioned, have a whole bunch of data available. When I look at the company around major industry, we find that actually many of the key companies are really using it and only piecemeal on the data on some visualization tool and et cetera, et cetera. But however, I want to echo to you, I wanted to mention 3 points. First of all, it's about the comprehensive of data. When you think about data, we have external data and internal data, right? So the key for us as a finance professional is how we can connect all different kinds of data and then make sense out of it, right? So that is really important for us to making sure we connect external and internal data and with a very robust data warehouse to making sure all data are connected. The second point about is you mentioned about real-time insight, right? The speed to insight is really important. So in order to really respond to the very volatile business environment, agility is the key. So for us to how to turn data into information into insight, and then the speed of it is very important. That's what we differentiate a leader or as a follower. So this is really key in terms of speed. Last but not the least is change in business process. So overall, after we have the data, how we can use this data to make informed decisions to drive actions across the company. So that actually related to how we work with the leadership team and how we transform the people interact with data across different functions in order to really make data into will to solve business problems. So some of the key takeaway for me.
Thank you for that one, Keith. Now, Daniel, you deal with a lot of customers from around the region. This topic of stewards of data, is that relevant right now for a lot of your customers? Do you hear it being called out by your customers around the region?
So I've been working in the finance technology space for about 15 years now, over 15 years. And finance leaders mostly still face the same problems they did a decade ago. The first one is poor data management, and the second one is time-consuming manual work. So on the other hand, their responsibilities have grown to include everything from strategic guidance to cost containment, new reporting requirements, and even operational planning. So finance frustration with tech issues, manual tools, and departmental data, clearly data in silos, basically, clearly indicate that finance has to some extent outgrown its role as a data steward, and finance now needs tech intelligence, automation, and data centralization to fully take on its position as an organization's strategic center. That's where I see the future, is not just the steward of data, but actually being the strategic center of the organization.
Okay, interesting. Now, there's an IBM Global AI Adoption Index. So we're going to move from data. We're going to skip automation because Daniel mentioned that already. We're going to go straight into AI, artificial intelligence. According to the IBM report, 54% of tech professionals are using AI. But however, in the finance profession, they are at the bottom list. 21% are using AI, well below HR, sales, and even product managers. Given that finance people are, okay, I'll disagree with Daniel here, stewards of data, why is AI adoption so low in the finance? So the question, Wilkie, if I have to throw you in the bus on this question, why is AI the last team to use artificial intelligence?
Well, I think it really depends on how people define AI. Well, for those who are online, actually, there's one way to increase your AI adoption is by using linear regression.
Oh,
so
that's true.
Well, so I think there's a wide range when people talk about AI. I mean, obviously the PR goes to the AlphaGos of the world. And then typically, and then you have papers that lumped RPA together with AI. So another way to look at the survey is really how people define AI and how finance people see what they use, whether that belongs to AI or not. To me, I mean, RPA, I don't really see this as AI, but I mean, a lot of the papers lumps it together. So it really depends on how people respond to the survey. But rather than looking into how different functions rank across the usage of AI, I think it is more important for finance executives to be able to find the right kind of use cases, because at the end of the day, AI is just a tool to achieve certain means. And using the tool, but not really answering the right kind of question, it's not relevant. So I think it really comes down to what you're really looking at and how you're going to do it.
Fair enough there. Thank you for that one, Wilkie. Now, Keith, you've been a steward of data for a while now, leading McDonald's Hong Kong in terms of its use of data. In your own experience, what's your experience with AI? Maybe that's a better way of asking it. Keith?
Yeah, thank you, Allan. As you mentioned, many functions already using AI, particularly on these marketing folks, right? They use AI to predict customer behavior, etc. Right? For finance, right? We have a key role is to drive efficiency, operation efficiency across organization. At McDonald's, for example, and we have multi-millions of members, and then in order to drive top line, sometimes they need to send many different discount coupons to the consumers, right? So over the years, then we accumulate more than 1,000 different coupon types, and our each coupon type, they have more than 100 different attributes. But when you think about using coupon to drive behavior, you need to invest in food and paper costs, right? And we have different objectives, as what Wilkie mentioned, in different times. Sometimes we drive frequency, sometimes we wanted to increase the average check, sometimes we wanted to clear some of this stock, etc. So for us to really have all this, such a complicated different combinations of decision in order to send a coupon, it's almost impossible at that scale to have human brain to work on it, right? So that's why in order to solve that business problem, Then we work with Oracle, which is around already our cloud provider, to use neural networks, some of the machine learning and AI algorithm in order to plan and support how we can do it in a better way. So instead of we have a whole bunch of finance professional working on a very big scale Excel, and that comes to the picture. So with this, then we really able for us to predict with the combination of different coupons and drive different business objective for the next couple of weeks. And with this, then I'm so happy that the result was very encouraging. It's much more predictable result. And with this, then we also reduce the number of finance account in order to support this business decisions. And overall, what we can do is more surgical coupon planning to the right deal for the right price, to the right channel, to the people at the right time. So this proven to be pretty effective for our case. And for us, then we can reduce put in paper and have much better desired business outcome to solve the real business problem. So this is somehow experience, Madonna.
Okay, interesting. And thank you very much for that one. I'd like to bring in the poll that we just ran, if I could. Can you bring it up, please? Okay. Now, the poll is interesting in the sense that according to the poll results, a lot of the our audience, majority of our audience, 76% voted on revenue growth as a priority, one of their top priority for the coming year, followed by, if the numbers are correct, if I know how number, retaining and attracting people, which we discussed several times already, and the third one being finding new customers or growth. Stephen, if you look at these data that our audience has pulled in for us, what's the right word? I'm looking for the right word. Are they to your expectations?
No, Allan, I think that is very in line with what we would expect, because as financial executives, I think it's important that we provide insight to CEOs and different business division leaders to drive growth, to improve margins so that we can deliver to our shareholders, to create value to our shareholders. And I think the insight, it's useful, but data itself is not. So the question is, how do we make use of AI, make use of data analytics to provide insights so that decision-making could be more relevant? I think that is very, very key and important. Of course, going beyond revenue growth, improving profit margin, you also need to consider how to retain talent, because talent is very important to a company, especially in this era. And of course, getting new customers, growing business is also very important. I think that's very aligned with what we are discussing today, Allan.
It's true, very true. Thank you very much for that, Stephen. Daniel, if I can bring you here, what's your take on this one? Are we missing anything here, or is this also similar to what you hear from around the region, not just Hong Kong? Okay, let's try and bring in the experiences around the region.
Especially the focus on revenue growth and profit margins is something we definitely see. A lot of our big customers are in the automotive industry, and we see their, especially with their legacy applications, they ran into a lot of issues because for really detailed profitability analysis and forecasting, they have a huge amount of granular data and huge data sets they need to process. So we've been working with the largest ones in the region. All of them basically had the same issue. They were looking at a new platform to basically bring that data together, and especially have it in memory database to really cut down on the processing time. And so we've really seen that, especially in big industries, which are very complex. But now also smaller customers are looking more into detail on profitability, especially after COVID.
Okay, thank you for that one, Daniel. If I could move on to our, and again, for our audience, if you do have any questions, please feel free to post them on the Q&A box. Now, there's this, which I'd like to step back a bit and go to the topic of automation, which it was mentioned earlier. There's this survey of 145 finance leaders where they recognize, 61% recognize the value of automation, and 29% gave it a rating of 4 out of 5. So that's a very significant position. However, only 5% confirmed that they have fully implemented automated data analysis. I wanted to ask Stephen and Wilkie here, where do you see is the struggle to adopt automation in the finance function, both in Hong Kong and around region? Stephen, let's start off with you.
Yeah, thank you, Allan. I think Keith and Daniel made a very good point about data. The challenges of data currently, as we see it in Asia, which is the lack of centralized data warehousing, lack of quality data, which I'll summarize, if I may, as poor data governance. And data analytics, in a way, is like a black box that if you have good data, then the result will be great. If you don't have good data, the result would be poor. However good your data analytics system is, it's garbage in, garbage out. But I would take it one further level up. It's not just about the data, it's about the people. And the reason why I say this is when I started as a junior accountant and going through the CPA qualification, when I went to school 20 years ago, 30 years ago, people in finance leadership positions, we did not receive any training in data governance using AI. AI is very recent. And when International Accounting Standards Board was established 20 years ago, there was no such thing as data analytics. So the accounting system, the entire generation of accounting professionals have no training in data analytics, in automation. But accounting system, which is the core of data analytics, were designed for accounting professionals. The system that we use in the past 10 years' time were built 10 years ago when data was not something that is so important. And so the challenge, I think, as I see it, is that we have to do a lot to catch up with the trend, because the system that we're currently using were designed at a time when AI wasn't important, when data analytics wasn't as important. I think this generation of finance leadership, how do we, I think it's really humbling when I was speaking to data scientists, when I was speaking to computer scientists, that they're so much more advanced in terms of their knowledge, their foresight, and how they use data. And I think if we can make use of the data at our disposal, if we have this mindset, if we have this culture of innovation, then the power would be immense. And I'm really excited about what this is ahead of us.
Thank you for that one, Stephen. Certainly, now you make me, I need to talk to data science people. Wilkie, what about your perspective? How do we do this? Why are we struggling with adopting automation beyond what Stephen mentioned?
Well, I think when we come to automation, for finance, everything that is more rule-based, so invoice matching, payment, AR, and all that, I think finance executives are very comfortable doing it. In fact, we actually welcome this because it takes out a lot of the human error. But when it comes to data analysis, there's a lot of cognitive element that goes into it. Then it gets to gets out of our comfort zone, because now we suddenly there's a loss of control if you were to just delegate the decision to the data. So I think there is this hold back from finance executives in terms of fully doing the data automation. So that's why I think you see a lot of the automation going as to compiling the data, preparing the data. But the last mile when it goes to in terms of interpreting it and making decision out of the data, it's still it's still not automated. Chances are that it is a journey. It's also a matter of volume. Because when you're talking about e-commerce, I mean, there's so much information that you need to make real-time decision. You have no choice but to trust what the data comes to you. But in finance, I think most of the time it's still manageable by automating some of that and freeing up resources so that you can take the last mile and make decisions yourself. I think it's a matter of time that people, when they get comfortable with the decision, the data, what's coming out with the results, it's consistent with what a human would judge. I think that's the time when people would jump to a fully automated data analysis.
Interesting. Thank you very much, Wilkie. Our topic for this panel is actually Future Ready Finance Leadership 2022. And I kept asking myself, is this realistic? Can we really, oh, sorry, it should be in 2023, right? Is this realistic? Okay. Keith, what would it take to achieve a future ready finance leadership?
Thank you so much, Allan. Because to me, I always say it in any regional leadership meeting that CFO stand for Chief Future Officer. Right?
Hey, that's a new one.
This is a new one. Everybody repeat that same quote and then say, oh, yeah. Because you think about it, first of all, finance have the most comprehensive, integrated, and connected vision of data, right? So we are in the best capacity because we're so cost function to anticipate future trends, right? So we'll be able to tell what happened around the corner. So this is a unique privilege that we have a finance professional to anticipate the future, which is very important, right? For us, how to prepare the organization as a whole to react on the future changes. So second of all, we work with the board, we work with the leadership team, we are the co-pilot for the CEO. We understand what are the most critical business driver and most critical business pain points that need to solve in order to drive the business in terms of revenue and margin efficiency, etc. So this is also very unique for us as a finance leader to work with other leaders using data, getting ready in the future to solve business problems. So this is the second point. I think this overall leadership for finance as a whole, the company is the key. Last but not the least, right? Also, thanks for my unique capacity as also the head of technology. And for finance professional, if you stay curious, you stay hungry and understand what happened in the technology trend, right? Because technology is really a very powerful tool to enable what kind of a really initiative that we want to do for a future finance leadership. So with this, then we also work alongside with technology, or even that we have to understand what is available in the market for us to acquire, so that we were able to achieve this future ready finance leadership. We believe it is very realistic goal.
Thank you for that one. Now, Keith, thank you, Keith. One thing I noticed that when we did this, as I mentioned, this is the last city, this is the fifth city in a roadshow. One of the recurring themes or issues around transformation initiatives is the recognition by a lot of people that it rests on people. Okay. Now, the question I have, Wilkie, for you, and Daniel, if you could provide as well, how do you create a digital first mindset, and why should it start with finance? Okay, so Keith, Wilkie, why don't we start with you?
Okay, thank you, Allan. Well, I think the digital first mindset, I think one of the barriers that we need to crack through is really to demystify the technology. Honestly, I think most of the people that have gone into the finance profession, they aren't the most tech savvy or the people that are looking for the most innovative things. Otherwise, they would have gone to a different profession. So for that, I think we have to recognize this, and we have to demystify the technology to the point that, because the technology has advanced to the point that it's actually a lot of the things are user-based. So it is not that different from like many years ago, when people are still dealing with mainframes, you need to wear a lab coat in order to use a computer. Now everyone has a computer on their desk as well as on their hand with the mobile phones. So the first part is really to demystify it so that the finance professionals, they know that this is something they can master, rather than having it to delegate it to their IT team or to an outside profession. So having that confidence that that's something that is in their realm, I think that is important. And second of all, I think for finance professionals, they need to know this is their future, because the technology is going to change so fast. And I bet that right now, when we see new graduates coming in, more and more for those will be more digital native. So they will be dealing with a batch of the new graduates that are equipped with all these skills, not just with the financial functional knowledge, but with the technical knowledge. So for the existing finance professionals, they need to upgrade their skills and start learning some of these things and using them. So I think these are the first two things that they need, as finance, we need to crack through so that the team will get more comfortable and also feel the urgency to move into this direction.
Thank you, Wilkie. Daniel, can you add anything to that?
Yeah, so there are 3 points which I personally see are required in addition to the core finance technical expertise for finance of the future. So broadly, the first one is data science skills, such as data modeling, analytics, and visualization. The second one, you need to have influencers with a focus on soft skills, such as strategic thinking, impactful storytelling, and communication. And finally, and that's the hardest one to find, I think, it's a business architect who actually possesses a thorough understanding of all aspects of the organization and can drive business modeling, financial driver analysis, and process design. So if you just put it in comparison, and I like the analogy to mobile phones, during the moon landing, NASA had less processing power in their hands than you have in your mobile phone today. Yet if you look at some of companies we come across in the finance function, you don't feel that finance has really evolved since the time of the moon landing. So there's a huge discrepancy between the finance skills at the moment and what actually technology can provide. And as Stephen said, there's a lot of catching up to do also from the professional organization to provide these kind of skills as part of the training.
Thank you for that. Now, bringing Stephen in there, since Daniel already called him out. Stephen, so how do you build this capability, the skills? How do you upskill the F&A teams so that they're able to keep up with the new business expectations, the things that Daniel alluded to? You know, you need to be more business savvy. You need to be able to communicate these things. Stephen?
Yep. Allan, I think the most important is to attend Future CFO Summit.
Hey, I agree with that one. Thank you very much.
No, but seriously, I think that's a very good question. And I think what we're building is a future-proof finance function. And to build that, to build any building, you need a very strong foundation. Without a good foundation, no matter how tall the building is going to collapse. And I think for any good corporate strategy, the foundation of success would be a strong corporate culture. Peter Drucker is famously quoted as saying that culture is strategy for breakfast. And what he's saying is that if you don't have a good corporate strategy, good corporate strategy alone doesn't actually get you to anywhere unless you have good culture. And I think culture is very important. And I honestly don't have any wisdom to share, Allan. And when I was building the team culture, I looked to the best in class worldly. So I basically look at what Google was doing. I was looking at what Netflix was doing and trying to bring those into Prenetics. Of course, they are much larger organizations and they have much more resources. I'm sure there are a lot of things that I could learn at the time. And so I try to bring those into the team so that we have a team that is not afraid of trying, a team that is ready to embrace changes. And once we have this very strong corporate culture, it's kind of like a filter system and defense mechanism. When we hire new people, the screening process will screen out people that are not aligned with our vision and our strategy. When people come on board during the probation period, you know exactly who is to stay, who is not to stay, because we have this strong corporate culture that can defend against any dilution. And on top of corporate culture, I think Wilkie made a very good point, is that we have to demystify technology so that the team knows what they need to do. We need to invest in our people. And I think to that point, it is really important to let them know what's happening in the world. Because accounting professionals, when they receive accounting training, honestly, I don't have any training in technology, AI. And so having cross-department dialogues is very important. And how do we make sure that happens? Because accountants and engineers, they speak different languages. And so, again, have to rely on internal buy-in. I need to get the buy-in from other teams. I need to speak to our department heads so that we make sure these happen. Because with a strong finance team, FP&A team, and with a strong engineering team or scientific team, data scientists, then a lot can happen. But people need to know why they're doing this. You need to be able to enroll them into this vision so that this cross-pollination of ideas can happen.
Very well said. Thank you very much for that, Stephen. You sounded like a guru already. Anyway, we're coming down to the last question for the group. The question is, okay, we want to achieve this future-ready finance leadership by 2023. The question is, what would derail what would stop us from achieving this capability? So if I could start off with Wilkie here. Wilkie, what's your thought? How, I mean, you have the easiest one because we're starting off with you.
Thank you, Allan, for giving the easy slot. I think let me just start off with one, which is the risk of falling back to the old self. Because when we talk about future-ready finance, there needs to be a sense of openness in terms of like sharing the information, sharing the data. So that goes against the control mindset of the traditional finance. So to be aware of that, I mean, the same applies to the need to be everything that's foolproof, because as the team gets more future ready, they will make mistakes. They will do something that will not turn out to be successful. And having that tolerance to failure, I think that is important. So let me start with that and hear from the other panelists.
Okay, thank you for that, Wilkie. Keith, what about you? What will derail our goal to become future ready?
What I echo to what Stephen mentioned is the stakeholders buy-in. That is very key. We just talked about this morning with the leadership team about how we can explain the benefit of digital transformation to the restaurant manager, for example. Right, so we're just starting from really have to lay out the world is changing. Change is constant, right? When we really see the pace of changing in the external world, external of the company is faster than the change that we have internally, that enterprise may not be able to survive for too long. So that's why this is almost imperative for us to change, right? So yeah, we have to really elaborate well why we need to change, why we need to be future ready, in order for stakeholders to buy in and completely support. Otherwise, we give them the best car, future car, they are not able to drive it, right? So
maybe need the different driver's license. Thank you very much, Keith.
That's right. Yeah.
Stephen, what about you? What would
Yeah.
derail a future ready finance team function?
I think lack of commitment is a big risk, because we talk about the great things that AI can bring, data governance can bring, but Wilkie made a good point about openness in this transformation process. And openness is something that could be intimidating to a lot of people, because we know that with automation, there are jobs that are not going to stay with this company. There are people that would be threatened by changing the way of work, and people are not comfortable with data. People are not comfortable with changing how they used to do things. And we need to have an open dialogue. We need to be authentic and having these honest conversations with employees, with different stakeholders, so that we can get a buy-in. And of course, during this transformation, there are going to be challenges. And the question is, how do we demonstrate leadership to get everyone through this transformation process so that we can enjoy the upside? And to Keith's point, there's no turning back. Regardless of what we do, our competitors are going to change. And so if we do not change, there is no, it's a very cutthroat business environment, and there's no turning back.
We have to start looking for new business if that's the case, if we're not willing to change. Thank you very much for that, Stephen. Daniel, yeah, I know you're having a difficulty coughing, but sorry. Yeah, well, how would you say this? How do we round out beyond what Wilkie, Keith, and Stephen had mentioned? Anything else we missed out?
So 2 points. The first one is the lack of a vision and processes for a future-ready finance function. So you should be looking at integrating your processes across the organization to understand dependencies and ensure continuity of your information. And finance obviously is best suited as the facilitator to drive these cross-functional collaboration and ensure, for example, that forecasts for sales, operations, and financials are fully linked. And the second key point, which is often missed, is a focus on change management. Value is largely driven by people and data and not processes and technology. So especially for organizations used to working with well-established silos, breaking that status quo and moving towards collaboration and an open platform may require significant change management effort.
Okay, thank you for that. It feels very grim, but true enough, those are some of the things that we really need to look into. Gentlemen, time flies when the topic is important and interesting. Again, thank you very much for being part of our panel this morning. My thanks to all of you for the great sharings that you've provided for our audience today. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, Allan.
Thank you.
Thank you, Allan.
Bye. Okay.